I recently reread a missionary biography that first had a tremendous impact on my life when I was a college student in the 1970s at Mississippi State University. The book was called Bruchko. If you haven't heard of it, you need to read this book. In my opinion, one of the most impactful missionary biographies I've ever read. Here's the story. Bruce Olson was a blonde-headed, blue-eyed, tall, skinny Minnesotan of Scandinavian descent who had an encounter with Jesus in the late 50s, and by 1961, at 20 years old, found himself in South America, in the jungles on the border of Colombia and Venezuela, trying to reach out to a tribe of Stone Age, headhunter, cannibalistic, violent people. After 5 years in the jungle among the Motilone people, he had the first disciple who understood the gospel. 5 years. In that time, he had been shot with an arrow. He had been captured and tortured multiple times. Obviously, he never had been eaten, but he had had his life threatened, had every manner of jungle disease. Later on, he was captured by the National Liberation Army, which was the communist army, and he was held for 9 months and tortured, and then he was tried and given the death sentence, a firing squad. That is another miraculous story how he got out of that. Year after year, this type of thing. At another point in his life, there were some drug dealers who threatened his life and actually ended up killing some of his disciples. But after 30 years of living in the jungle as the only Christian, when he went there, there were no Christians. After 30 years, 70+% of the Motilone people were Christians. He's in his 80s now and still doing mission work and still a mission strategist and living in South America and still advocating for global mission. But here are my two main takeaways from the book Bruchko, which is the story of Bruce Olson, that missionary to the jungle people in the northern part of South America. Number one, you can do mission without destroying local customs and local cultures and indigenous people's ways of life. And that's what Bruce Olson gave his life to bring the gospel, but not bring Western culture. To bring Christ, but not bring Western cultural concepts and language and ideas. Of course, much of his life was spent translating the Bible into local dialects and teaching people how to read and taking their language into a written language, but not touching some of the other cultural distinctives. Second lesson is from the book and from the life of Bruce Olson is that doing global mission is always costly. There's always sacrifice involved, not just if you're in the jungle, but if you're really on mission with God. There are things that are painful, lonely, misunderstood, sacrificial. There is suffering involved when we walk according to God's call and God's purpose. About the time I finished that book, I'm reading through the book of Mark, and I read Mark chapter 12, verses 41 through 44, a story we all know, a story most of us have preached. And in light of the Bruchko book and reading about the gospel impact of this one person's life, I read this and I saw it in a new light. Verse 41. And he sat down opposite the treasury and watched the people putting money into the offering box. Many rich people put in large sums. Let me read that part again. Many rich people put in large sums. Now, a lot of pastors would go, boy, that's an answer to prayer. This is a good day. Many rich people put in large sums. That didn't impress Jesus. It didn't satisfy Jesus. It wasn't even celebrated by Jesus. It was less than acknowledged by Jesus. It wasn't even recognized as a good thing by Jesus. Many rich people put in large sums. But Jesus didn't even seem to care. Verse 42. And a poor widow. So many rich people. There's a lot of them. Now we're going to an individual. The one, the many. Now we've got the one. A poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which make a penny. So we have Jesus contrasting many rich people putting in large sums and one poor widow putting in a penny. 2 small coins that equal a penny. Now he explains it, verse 43. And he called his disciples to him and said to them, truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. Wait a minute. Jesus, you're a great teacher. You're a great prophet. You're a great miracle worker. You're a great healer. You are a terrible accountant. Not so good at being a CFO. How can you say that this poor widow who put in a penny put in more than all of the many rich people who put in large sums, and maybe all the middle class people who put in maybe not large sums, but how does that even come close to not only equaling, but this is greater? There's some math issues here. But the truth is Jesus doesn't do math the way we do. Verse 44, he explains it. Here's why he said that. Because they all contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, has put in, here are the 2 words, everything she had, all she had to live on. The 2 pivotal words are everything. She put in everything she had. She put in all she had to live on. Think about those words a minute. Everything and all. From what I read, that was the story of Bruchko, which is how the Motiloni tribals pronounced Bruce Olson. He kept saying, no, my name is Bruce Olson. Oh, Bruchko. Which sounded kind of Russian to me, but it's tribal. Bruchko. He put in everything. He put in all. In the eyes of Jesus, there are different types of giving. He names 2 of them here. But if we think about it, let's think about giving money. There are some people who give none. They give nothing financially. Maybe they are regularly parts of the church and they enjoy and they consume and they receive, but they give nothing financially. Then there are people who give little. It's something, but it's little. And then we get to the 2 that Jesus mentioned. There are people who gave much. And then there's this rare category of people who gave all. That grid of giving none, some, much, or all reminds me of the old classic hymn, Some Gave All by Billy Ray Cyrus. Maybe you know the song, actually, I'm kidding. It's not a hymn, it's a country song by Billy Ray Cyrus. And it was an American patriotic kind of song, but it talked about people who, in a time of war, he said, all gave some, I'm not going to sing it, all gave some, but some gave all. And it was sort of a Memorial Day song. In America, Memorial Day is when there's a remembrance of those who gave their lives in different wars and conflicts, military people. And he was referring to that everybody gave some, but some gave all. And I think when Jesus is talking about this to his disciples, there is that concept of, these guys, these rich people, they gave some, but this widow, she gave it all. And that's what he's called us to. Now let's take it out of the money. Let's take it off the focus on money and an offering. Because I think there's something bigger going on here. What about our lives? Our passions, our future, our dreams, our visions? Do you give none, some, much, or all? Think about your aspirations in life, your dreams in life, your goals in life. Have you given none of those to God, some of those to God, much of that to God, or all of it to God? See where this is going? Jesus looks at the one who gave all and said, she's given more than everybody else. The one who financially gave the least gave the most. How does that work? Here's what I think. Jesus looked not at what ended up in the offering plate, but what was remaining in their pocket. He looked at what they kept. Now, this story was about money, but again, I think it's something much bigger than money. If we can get it off of the money issue, and what Jesus is looking at in our lives is what we're keeping. And the one who gives everything, and the one who sacrifices all, and the one who lays all of their life and everything about them at the foot of the cross, that's the one who gave the most. Let's be that kind of person, not the one who holds and gives a little bit, or even holds and gives much. What we want to do is give it all to Him. Obviously, we know Jesus gave it all on the cross for us. He gave everything on the cross for us. So how do we respond to that? The way we respond to what Jesus did on the cross is we respond in kind. We give our all to Him. We give everything to Him. But also as leaders, as preachers, the way we respond is by also calling others to give all. We're so hesitant sometimes as preachers and as spiritual leaders to call people to sacrifice and to call people to the cross and really to call people to basic New Testament Christianity, which is laying down our lives for something bigger than us, which is the person of Christ and also the purpose of Christ. We're too often hesitant to call people to the cross and preach as normal Christianity what I think has become something we see as radical. It's only someone like Bruce Olson. Okay, he's this radical person. No, that's normal. It's not normal to go live in the jungle. That's not what everybody's called to do. But whatever we're called to do, it is all in. It is everything and all, not a little bit or a lot and keep some. It's not that. So how do we respond to Jesus giving all? We give all, but also we call others to give all without hesitation.